Alright, so we know we're talking about gut health and diet. For those of you who haven't seen me talk before, I'm the naturopath here. I'm also a herbalist, so I do lots of the lovely herbs that Kerry was talking about. And I'm also a GAPS practitioner, so a lot of that does tie in with the gut health and the diet and things like that. So I'm going to talk about lots of different diets. We'll start with what a healthy diet is. And it's actually an interesting question because a healthy diet will vary from person to person, and I have a lot of people who come in and it might be for themselves, it might be for their kids, and we'll go through their history with them. We'll sort of go, okay, so what's your diet like? And they go, oh, it's pretty healthy. And, you know, quite often on paper, it's not the worst diet in the world. It's just not the right diet for them. It's like, say I have a child with autism that comes in and they're having Wheat Bix for breakfast. Not bad cereal to have, one of the better ones if you're going to choose. They might be having a brown bread sandwich for lunch and maybe some pasta for dinner, all homemade. So mum thinks she's doing the right thing, but the fact is, you know, all this gluten is not working because the child is on the spectrum and is reacting to those foods. So a healthy diet will vary depending on you and your individual needs. But in general, it is eating a variety of foods and a variety of whole foods. So, you know, good meats, that sort of thing, fresh fruits and veggies. Eating seasonally is actually quite important, and it goes along with the Mediterranean diet in particular, which is one of those tried and tested and very, you know, it's had the longevity, the Mediterranean diet. But the issue with eating seasonally these days is probably most of us don't even know what is in season because it's in season 365 days a year. So my parents used to have a farm, so things like almonds, for example, because it was an almond farm, and we had some fruit trees on there. Almonds aren't in season yet. They're coming into season. You know, we'd be starting to prepare to pick them in the next couple of weeks. Apples, they're not quite in season yet. They would be starting sort of later, sort of Marchish. We'd start, you know, and the different varieties would come into season on their own. Olives wouldn't come into season until about May. That's when we'd start picking them. I am going all the ethnic foods because that's what I know. But we don't know that now because we can get these all year round. It's just that a lot of the times we're eating last season's foods and probably in a season where we should be focusing on other stuff. So eating seasonally is actually quite important. We just have to sort of get back to the basics and understanding what is in season. Fresh fruits and veggies, very important. Again, I think one of the slides I have in here though does sort of talk about the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. So that's about foods which are best for organic versus ones where it doesn't matter as much, and that's just due to the level of pesticides and things that they're exposed to. Protein is important wherever you get that from, be it from your meats or be it from, you know, your eggs or lentils and things like that. It depends on where you want to get it from, but good quality, grass-fed, free range, that kind of thing. And good fats are also very important. So things like your olive oil, your avocados, your salmon, your you know, your oily fishes, olive oil, that kind of thing. Coconut oil, all very important, good healthy fats. So we shouldn't be scared of them, which we've probably been frightened of them in years gone by. I'm also a big fan of fermented foods, just generally because of the good quality bacteria and how good that is in re-inoculating your gut and really supportive with digestion, and eating those foods in conjunction with a good diet will really take you a long way. And something else that's really important is healthy portion sizes. So, you know, don't fill the plate until it's overflowing. It's better to sort of, you know, underestimate how much you want to eat and then sort of eat that properly, that slowly, all the things Kerry was talking about, and then see how you go. If 20 minutes later you're still a bit hungry, then you might want to have a little bit more, but generally, you know, don't eat until you feel like you're going to explode and you've got to undo your pants. So this is the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 I was talking about. So it's a bit of a guide. There's some of the things, so the things on the Dirty Dozen side generally are more heavily sprayed, things like berries and that. They get the moulds and things, so they tend to spray them a lot more. Apples are quite heavily sprayed. I know with all the kale and that, I can't grow kale at home because I have very hungry caterpillars that seem to munch through my entire spinach and kale garden, so I definitely know that they must be doing something to those. So if you sort of bear that in mind, because it is very expensive to buy everything organically, but if you bear in mind some things are better than others, then, you know, that's, you know, takes you a long way. So the healthy foods, these were just some of them, obviously good fats, avocado, salmon, that kind of thing. And we've got a bit of, that's your sauerkraut there. Olive oil, of course, and then, you know, your greens and all that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the diet, so what I would call the diet maze. And the thing with the word diet, I actually really dislike the word diet because I always associate it with negative thoughts of deprivation, starvation, not being allowed to eat anything because I'm on a weight loss program. So I don't like the word, but really diet is just representative of talking about the kind of foods that we eat. So you can be on a, you know, vegetarian kind of diet, a Mediterranean style diet. It's just the type of food you eat, but I don't like the word, but we'll use it. So we've got weight loss diets. Then we have your gluten-free, dairy-free diets, which people go on for a variety of reasons. We have the GAPS diet, which then in itself has its own purpose. We have things like the paleo diet, or your high-fat, low-carb kind of diet, whatever you want to call it. We have FODMAPs, which many people are familiar with. Mediterranean diet, my favourite, or one of them. There's the blood type diet, which has come and gone, and come again, and then gone again, and come back again. And then vegetarian, vegan diet. And look, on top of this, there's a million others, but there's only so much time they let me talk, so I just picked a few of them. So when you're talking about weight loss diets, I'm going to go through a few that I actually just could think of without having to research. Kerry, you can jump in if you want to add anything here, because I know a lot of experience in these diets. So if we talk about Weight Watchers, that one's been around forever, and it works on a point system. You know, I think you get 20 points, and certain foods add up to everything. It is one of those ones where you can be quite successful on it. I don't think it's too complicated. But of course, as someone said to me once, that they could have a burger like from McDonald's, and that was 20 points. So if that's all they ate for the day, then they still had stuck within the bounds of what the rules were. So you still have to have a healthy diet to go with these kinds of things. Another one which has really gained popularity and is actually quite a good option is the 5 and 2 diet, which is intermittent fasting. So you fast 2 days a week, not consecutive days. So on those days you're having about 500 calories, and eating well the other days. So you still have a very good diet, but it gives your body a chance to sort of detox and recover, and it's actually quite a good diet. It does help support weight loss. Some people do variations of this. They do 5 and 1, and they'll do that more as a maintenance program, or just to give their body 1 day a week break from eating too much. And you can do variations on how you do that. So you can do it in the paleo style. You can do it as a you know, just a general healthy eating style. You could do it as a gluten-free style. So there's different ways of incorporating that style of eating. The HCG diet, or someone else I saw online had renamed it the 4-phase fat elimination diet. That is quite a strict weight loss program, and it has a number of phases, and it's designed, I always say, it's designed to trick your body into thinking it's pregnant, and then it's very, very low calories. You will lose a substantial amount of weight on it, and it's supported with either injectable HCG or a homeopathic version. But like a lot of weight loss diets, you know, the question is, after you've done the diet, what do you do then? There's the Atkins diet, which was quite popular, I think, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that was a high protein, high fat, low carb. So versions of that have continued. So paleo is a little bit similar, I suppose, and you know, the high fat, kind of high protein, low carb diets that are around now, there's a little bit of that in them. And then we have the ketogenic diet. So that was originally done to support epilepsy, for people who have epilepsy. But what it does is it actually gets the body in ketosis, which is in its fat burning phase, and it's high fat, low carb again, that same principle, and you know, you can lose quite a lot of weight on that diet. So again, that's quite good. The Dukan diet came and went. That was all high protein. That was days where you were just eating all meat. It was a specific weight loss program. But it didn't sort of stick around for very long, I don't think. And the 17-day diet, that was a very strange one because it was rotating your carbohydrates every 17 days. So it was very different again. So as you can see, and that's only some of the diets for weight loss. There's a million more, I'm sure. But they're just some of them that I actually was like, oh. we'll go through those. And there are options. Some of them are better than others, certainly. And again, it would be about finding the right one for you if weight loss is your primary goal. And of course, anything when you are looking at any kind of weight loss diet, it's all right to do the diet. What you need to be doing is educating yourself along the way to understand what you're going to do when the diet ends. Because anyone can do a 6-week program and really be focused and stick to that. It's what happens for the rest of your life when you've lost 10 kilos. Generally, you'll get 15 back just as, you know, gift with purchase kind of thing. You get a bit of extra. And that's just what seems to happen. If you don't do more than just go on the weight loss program. So then when we're looking at gluten-free, dairy-free, generally that's a good go-to when I do have people who come in that have got digestive issues. It's a good place to start. Very good for children who are on the spectrum or ADD, ADHD, even behavioural issues. My son has autism and we find that he functions really well gluten-free. Dairy doesn't seem to affect him, but any trace of gluten, I don't even need to see him eat it. Behaviourally, I can tell immediately that he's had something. And, you know, he'll come home from school and my couch is the trampoline, he's bouncing all over the couch and he's up and down the hall and then he can't sit still and he's fidgeting at the table. And then I'll be like, what did you eat today? And he'll go, oh, someone brought a cupcake in. God. So then, you know, we've got 24 hours of this hyperactive kid who can't even relax in bed. So for him, it affects him greatly. So it's not only digestive issues with gluten that can be the problem, it can actually be those behavioural and that brain fog that comes in as well. And the good thing with the gluten-free, dairy-free diet in particular is it actually supports other things. My daughter's actually gone gluten-free, dairy-free after much nagging from me and ending up me having to take her to another practitioner to tell her exactly what I've been telling her. She would love that I'm talking about this. So sort of hormonal changes, 12, and, you know, body's changing, skin sort of blemishes, that kind of stuff, a bit, you know, snippy, let's say. But by going on this diet, you know, and she did it of her own accord, because you've got to at that age, just sort of encourage it. But even hormonally, that's calmed down, all that sort of lashing out and those hormonal mood swings have calmed down. She noticed she lost a lot of her bloating and that kind of thing. So for her, it was digestively based, but it was affecting her hormones and her concentration and her mood swings as well. So we did notice that that made a huge difference, and that's only been in sort of 3-4 weeks, so that's been quite good. Then there's something like the GATS diet, and that originally came about, for those of you that don't know, there was a woman who designed it, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, because her son was diagnosed with autism, and she had connected the gut and the brain connection and felt that there was more that could be done. A lot of it is based on the specific carbohydrate diet, and basically it is a gut healing protocol. That's what it's designed to do. It's got 3 stages. So the introduction stage, that's the hardest part, that's got 6 phases in it, and you're very restricted initially because the whole point is it's almost like weaning baby from, you know, breastfeeding to solids. You start really slowly, you're introducing things one at a time, a lot of gut healing, a lot of fermented foods, and that really kind nurturing to your digestive system. You want to re-inoculate that body with the good bacteria, and you want to do it slowly because you do have die-off and you do sort of not feel fabulous sometimes. And then you would move into a full GAPS stage, and then eventually your goal is to come off GAPS. And part of what you do is you're removing all those inflammatory foods, the grains, a lot of dairy, starchy vegetables, that kind of thing. And it's used for autism, ADD, ADHD, eczema, autoimmune conditions, hormonal imbalance. I've had people that have come through that have wanted to do it. They want to start a family, so they want to get their body in peak condition before they start a family, so they've used that to support them. You know, all your skin conditions, things like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis can be supported at least with having that decent nurturing healing foods as well. So the next one that we've all heard about, the paleo diet, which is no grains, no dairy, no legumes, no lentils. Not sounding like a lot of fun, is it? Grass-fed meats, again, it's whole foods, fermented foods. And the good thing about this diet now, with the popularity and I guess Pete Evans, someone like him being behind something like this, it's not that difficult to do even socially. Some diets can be quite restrictive socially. You find you go out and you're that person going, oh, I don't have anything here. A lot of places will cater for it. They know what it is. Even if you go to functions and things like that, they'll understand if you're requesting paleo meals what that means, whereas even 12 months ago they wouldn't have known. And certainly when we did the GAPS diet a few years ago, God, nobody, I couldn't even say to get a paleo meal because no one knew what that was either. So, we would be those people. I'll just have water. We couldn't eat anything. So it's a lot easier to eat healthy now because a lot more people are doing it. So that's a good thing. Now, with the FODMAP diet, that stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides and polyls. I had to write that down because no one was going to read that. And what you do these, well, what Kerry was talking about with it fermenting and giving you that bloating and that discomfort, you avoid these foods and you remove them all. Some people say 1 week, some people say 2. I like, 4 to 6 weeks to sort of clear things out of your system. And then we slowly introduce them, or reintroduce them slowly, one by one, and see what you tolerate them. My theory with things like that, it's all fine to pull foods out of your diet and say, well, I can't eat that, can't tolerate that. But if you're going to pull them out, then you would be working on doing some gut work and some healing so that you're actually addressing the back end and the reason why you're possibly having some issues with these foods, and then start reintroducing things once you've actually done some real significant gut work. So with a Mediterranean diet, and this is obviously this is what I grew up on, so this is the kind of diet I knew. They say that with things like fish in here, often or at least twice a week. When I was growing up, fish was probably 5 times a week. Lots of bitter greens, lots of greens. Everything was grown in the garden, everything homemade. But it's lots of, and even breads, when we did have the whole grains and the breads, they were fermented, so they were sort of more sourdough type breads rather than the commercial breads that you buy these days. But just the general, lots of fresh produce, lots of seasonal food, lots of good oils through eating good quality seafood, not a lot of red meat, but some red meat, good red meat, grass-fed, and it's a very clean diet, and, and it's the one diet that always seems to stick around and that people do come back to. It is quite a healthy diet to have. Then there's the blood type diet, which I actually found quite interesting. Because they base it on what blood type you are. And I've kind of really generalised it a bit, but you might identify with some of it. Because someone who's an O blood type, which is what I am, needs a lot of physical exercise and suit a paleo style diet. So, lots of protein. We're definitely carnivores. Lots of veggies and things, but not so much on the gluten and the wheats and grains and things like that. They don't agree so much. An A blood type suits a more yoga and Tai Chi and a vegetarian style diet. So you go more in depth into these, but this is sort of the real generalised of the blood types. And then you get the B blood type, which likes a bit of moderate exercise, but things like swimming, walking, yoga, and a balanced diet with some vegetables, limited dairy and wheat, so not zero, but limited. And then your AB needs a balance between your high intensity and your very calming exercises, and lots of veggies, probably suit a vegetarian diet. They do some protein, no dairy or wheat doesn't seem to suit them. So a lot of people do these blood type diets, and they were popular a number of years ago. Not one I use a lot, because I tend to always focus on stepping back, healing the gut, and then finding what kind of diet is going to work with your lifestyle, because that's really important too, and I'll talk about that a bit later. And then vegetarian diet, no animal flesh, can have dairy, pulses and lentils. You get the vegan diet, which is no animal flesh, no products that come from animals. So that one's probably one of the harder ones to sustain on the thought as far as eating. And you have to be very conscious when you start to do diets like this of making sure that you are getting all your nutrients via the foods that you do eat, and not having a lot of those processed vegan, vegetarian types of foods. So still keeping it fresh. So Kerry covered this a little bit, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how to eat. I know we all know how to eat, but ways to support your digestion and eat well. And no matter what type of diet or eating style you choose, this is sort of a good way to eat. So sitting at the table. So probably a lot of people don't do that anymore. It seems to be a bit of a dying art. Most people sit eat on the run, either standing or sitting, or like I saw a lady on Monday when I was coming up here to work. She had a bowl and spoon, and she was driving an at last. Now, I don't know what she was eating, but she had a bowl and spoon. There was lunchtime, so don't eat in the car. It's funny, I read this book, and some of you may have heard of it, years ago, called French Women Don't Get Fat. And they are beautiful women, actually, the French women, and they are exposed to the best, richest cheeses, and the food is full of cream, and their cakes, and everything's delicious and divine. And it's because of the style of eating. So the woman was writing how she lived in France, and then she moved to America, doubled in size while living in the US, went home, went back to France, and everyone went, oh, what happened to you? And she went back on the French diet, which is about no restrictions. You eat anything and everything you want, but you eat it all in moderation. So they don't eat the whole cake, they might eat a few spoonfuls of the dessert. They sit at the table. They turn the TV off, the technology. They're not in front of it, eating like this, watching whatever they're watching. They eat slowly. So that's quite important as well. So they'll put the cutlery down. So they're eating, they're chewing, they're talking. They put it down between mouthfuls, and they chew slowly. So they don't rush. And even lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner is eaten sat down, so that your body is in that parasympathetic, I'm going to digest and enjoy my meal. They also eat, and I say eat, like I said before, until you're not quite full. You're almost full, but you're not stuffed. Because 20 minutes later, if you have eaten until you're really full, you're going to feel extraordinarily full, and you'll be undoing your pants on the couch. And don't stand and eat. Don't stand at the, and we're all guilty of it, stand, especially in the morning. I am standing at the kitchen bench trying to eat, pack the lunches, do last night's dishes if I haven't done them, and you're not really in a digestive kind of mode. And like I said, don't eat in the car. Because when you're eating in the car too, you're eating whatever. You're not concentrating, you eat so much more. You're normally not eating anything that's particularly good for you, unless this lady had maybe some salad that she was eating in the car with her spoon, but that's not safe. So generally we would say, eat when you're supposed to eat, and make that eating time a focus. And if you've got someone there that you're eating with, have a conversation, that kind of stuff. So the question is, choosing the right diet. The first thing is you've got to look at your lifestyle. You've got to be realistic about what works in your life. If you're very, very busy, then I suggest you need to be very organised. You need to perhaps cook in advance. If you're cooking dinner and you've got to go to work the next day and you cook for 2 normally, cook for 4. Make a couple of lunches, and then bam, you've got your lunch for the next day. You're not tempted to go to whatever sort of local deli or takeaway that you would normally do. But you've got to work out what suits the life that you have. You want whatever you choose to be sustainable. That's why I talk about weight loss diets. They're just not sustainable, and I don't know too many people who do weight loss programs and they only ever do one in their life. They generally, once they start one, they are on that merry-go-round for quite a long time, because nobody knows what to do when they finish. So they finish the program, they've lost their weight, they don't know what to do. So whatever you choose, you need to be able to sustain it for the long term, the rest of your life. So it's something you can maintain long term, and it needs to be something that works for your body. Just because it works for your best mate doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Because what we can eat and what they can eat is going to be different. And it's really good, which you're all doing because you're here, you educate yourself around food and sort of understand food and understand what it's all about and understand what it's doing to your body. Quite often it's good to make changes slowly. So don't try and do it all at once. Some people are all or nothing, but for the most part, again, if you want to have long-term success, everything needs to become a habit. Right down to when I talk to people about, say, having lemon water in the morning, like a glass of water with half a lemon squeezed in it. I recommend that for most people. Start with that as a change, because even that is a habit to get into, to the point where you miss it if you don't do it. And the last one is something that I actually think is quite important these days, is don't be a food fashion victim, I call it. It's like whatever the latest fashion is, and with Google and with bloggers and with everybody's following somebody online, and everyone's friends are following someone, and the person that they're following is amazing and is the person that everyone should be following. And it's like, it becomes like fashion. It becomes like the shoes you're wearing or the pants you bought or whatever it is. And it's whatever, you meet those people who are jumping from fad to fad to fad to fad to fad. Find whatever works for you and stick to it, and you will find that A, you'll have less stress because you'll just know what to do and what is right for your body, and you know, block out all that extra kind of feedback that we're getting, because there's just too much information out there and you spend a lot of time trying to filter that out, and then that causes stress. And as it is, most people are living their lives in quite a stressful manner, and you're in fight or flight most of the time, which then isn't good for digestion. So yeah, just sort of do what works for you, get a plan, and then stick with it. Thank you.